I am a believer that money makes the world spin. I don't think anybody wants it to be that way, but I do think that that's the way that it is. I started taking this idea a lot more seriously about a year ago. 3 weeks before I started college, I had gotten my third job, and while I didn't have much to show for the other two, I wanted to make sure that I did for this one. My two previous jobs were during my time in high school. The first one was at a leather shop, and while the job itself wasn't that interesting, I wouldn't trade that experience for anything. I was surrounded by amazing people, I had an amazing environment around me, and it was really fun. This was also the first time that I really made my own money, so it was very exciting for me to be able to do something like that. However, that was the problem. Being a kid didn't exactly go well with income. I ended up quitting that job after about 9 months due to restrictions because of COVID, and because I was just a kid, there was no reason I had to work, so I just left. I had some money saved up, but I probably just spent it on things that didn't matter anyways, and before you know it, I'm just back at square one. My second job was at a cookie store, and this one didn't really last that long. I didn't really fit into the environment there, and it only took about 2 to 3 months for me to just lose motivation. I do remember that a good chunk of that money was spent on better things. I started understanding what I wanted and what things would benefit me, but I still spent all the money. I'm glad I was making better choices in terms of how I spent my money, but I still needed to put a rule on myself for how much I spent the money. I hadn't really touched the surface of financial intelligence at these first two jobs, but that was going to change dramatically once I got my third one. So at those first two, my pay was good enough. I was making under $10 an hour, but of course, I'm just in high school, so any money is good money for me because I just get to go do things with my friends and spend it all. However, this third job started at $12 an hour. This was a huge jump for me, and I wanted to make sure I would really take care of it this time. But I wasn't really sure how I was going to do that. This is where my budget began. Chris referred me to an app called YNAB, or You Need a Budget. With a student plan, it gave me a free year, and I used it to track every single penny that went in and out of my accounts. Considering he was a year older than me, Chris knew a lot more about finance than I did, and I always wanted to get to his level. Once I knew a little bit more and I started budgeting, I didn't buy anything because I just wanted to get as much money as possible into my accounts. I had no idea when I started the third job, but I found out that I was going to have a 401k because I was over 18. After the 90-day period, I immediately opened a 401k and started contributing 75% of my pay pre-tax into the retirement account. I know that sounds crazy, but I promise you I'm not stupid. I just knew that because I wasn't doing anything with my money, one of the best places for it to go was somewhere where I couldn't get to it. I wanted my money to grow somewhere because I understood that the stock market was very important. I held the 401k at 75% for a while, and after just a few months I had over $3K in the account. This is where things changed again. I started learning more about the stock market, and before I knew it, I was really interested in actually investing myself. I lowered my 401k down to 30% and started learning about stocks. I learned about common stocks, blue chip stocks, high dividend yield stocks, and most importantly, index funds. I only really messed with index funds in the beginning because I knew that out of those 4 categories, indexes were probably the safest. Although investing is inherently risky, and I also chose to invest in the most volatile version of indexes, which were small cap growth funds. This is where I stayed for a while. I continued to get paid, and every time I thought I had a deposit-worthy amount of money, typically over $1,000, I would take it and put it into the stock account, and I invested it in something that I thought would grow. I later got a dividend-yielding stock once I started to figure out exactly how they worked, and I also picked up Google right before they split last April of this year, 2022. I was pretty evenly invested into each fund, and I thought this was a good balance. So that's where I kept it for a while. Although this is the next part of the equation, the supply chain issues. I mentioned COVID earlier, and it didn't just make people sick and also make people lose their jobs. It completely destroyed the world's economy. During 2020 and 2021, inflation started rising dramatically, and before we knew it, it was almost record high. Because of the rapid inflation within the United States, it forced the Federal Reserve to raise interest rates to combat the inflation. And this wasn't just in the US, it caused almost all of the world's economies to shake or stop in some fashion. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that's definitely not good for business. The inflation and rate hikes were killers for the economy, and of course, that includes the stock market. And that's definitely not a good thing because I had just invested over 75% of my net worth into the stock market. Now, I will say this, please understand that investing anything like what I've done is not going to be safe at all. However, because of my situation, I knew that I could take higher risks during my earlier age. This led me to push myself as much as I possibly could so that I could try to protect my future. And this brings us to where we are now. I'm currently not working. I quit that job right before I started my second year at college. And we're still in that bear market. Interest rates are still being hiked for the rest of 2022, I believe, and it's only going to make the big bear market even worse. But what this does do is give us a big opportunity during this downturn to try investing money. Now, I'm not saying you should, but if I get any more money on my hands while I'm not working, that's what I'm going to be doing. As you've just heard, please do not listen to me. As for making money, I've got a few more things that I'm trying to work out, but those are going to be for another video, so that's going to be it for now. I hope you enjoyed listening to the beginning of my financial journey, and I hope you can find some value in it. Maybe some lessons to learn, things not to do, but, you know, a lot of things to do, possibly. If you've got any questions or just want to talk with me in the comments, please leave a comment. I would love to talk with more people that actually watch my videos. And if you really did like it, subscribe and like. Have a great day, and I'll see you next week.